In the heart of West Africa, during the 14th century, there rose an empire that controlled vast lands, rich trade routes, and unimaginable wealth. This was the Mali Empire, one of the most powerful kingdoms in African history, and at its peak stood one man, a king whose riches would become legendary across the world, Mansa Musa, the wealthiest person to ever live. But who was Mansa Musa? How did he come to power? And what made his name echo through history as the richest of them all? Before Musa's time, Mali was already a thriving empire. It was founded in the early 13th century by Sundiata Keita, the warrior king who defeated the kingdom of Soso and united different tribes into a single, powerful state. Under Sundiata and his successors, Mali grew into an empire stretching across West Africa. Its strength lay in its location and resources. Mali sat on the crossroads of the trans-Saharan trade routes, where caravans carried salt, gold, ivory, and slaves between West Africa and North Africa. The Niger River also made farming and trade easier, helping towns like Timbuktu and Gao grow into rich centers of learning and commerce. By the time Mansa Musa was born around 1280, Mali was already wealthy, but he would take it to heights no one had imagined. Musa was born around 1280 into a royal family of Mali. As a young man, he was educated in the traditions of Islam, the religion that had spread across North and West Africa through traders and scholars. He learned not only the Quran, but also about governance, trade, and leadership. Unlike some rulers of the time, Musa was not expected to inherit the throne. His chance came almost by accident. In 1312, the reigning king of Mali, Mansa Abubakar Sedun, became obsessed with the ocean. He believed there were lands across the Atlantic and set out with a massive fleet to find them. Abubakar left Musa as his deputy. The fleet never returned and Musa suddenly found himself king. At just 32 years old, Musa became Mansa, the emperor of Mali. Musa did not waste time proving his strength. He expanded Mali's territory, bringing cities like Gao under his control. His empire grew to cover nearly 2,000 miles, from the Atlantic coast through the desert and into the forests of West Africa. He secured the trade routes that carried goods across the Sahara. Caravans traveling with hundreds of camels brought gold, salt, and other treasures to North Africa and beyond. Mali became the beating heart of West African commerce. But it wasn't just trade. Musa invested in farming, irrigation, and local industry, ensuring his people were fed and his empire stable. It was this combination of resources, trade, and good governance that made Mali flourish. His empire controlled the gold fields of Bambouk, Bor, and Galam, mines that seemed endless in their supply. Gold flowed from Mali like water from a river, filling the treasuries of the empire. At the same time, Musa controlled the salt trade. Though it may sound ordinary today, salt was vital in the medieval world. It preserved food, flavored meals, and was as valuable as gold itself. Together, gold and salt created a fortune, so massive that historians today struggle to even put a number on it. Some estimates place his wealth at the equivalent of 400 billion US dollars today. Others argue it was beyond calculation, wealth on a scale the modern world has never seen. Despite his riches, Musa was a devout Muslim, and like all Muslims, he was expected to make the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, at least once in his lifetime. In 1324, Musa decided to undertake this holy journey, but he was no ordinary pilgrim. His Hajj would become one of the most legendary displays of wealth in human history. Musa's caravan stretched further than the eye could see. According to accounts, he was accompanied by tens of thousands of attendants, soldiers, and slaves. He brought with him hundreds of camels and horses, each carrying sacks of pure gold. Along the way, Musa distributed gold generously. He gave to the poor, supported local communities, and spent lavishly in the markets. His generosity was unmatched, but in some places it caused chaos. When he reached Cairo, the capital of Egypt, his arrival stunned the city. Musa gave out so much gold that he caused inflation. The value of gold dropped because suddenly there was too much of it. Prices of goods soared, and the Egyptian economy took years to recover. It was perhaps the only time in history that one man's wealth disrupted an entire country's economy. Musa's pilgrimage did more than show his wealth. It placed Mali on the world map. Stories of the African king with endless gold spread to the Middle East and Europe. On the Catalan Atlas, one of the most important medieval maps of the world, Musa is depicted sitting on a throne of gold, holding a golden staff and a nugget of gold in his hand. For Europeans, who had never imagined such riches coming from Africa, Musa was almost mythical. This single journey transformed Mali from a regional empire into a name known across the globe. When Musa returned from Mecca, he brought with him more than gold. He returned with architects, scholars, and teachers. He invested heavily in his empire, especially in Timbuktu, which he transformed into a center of learning and culture. He built mosques, schools, and libraries, filling them with books and scholars from across the Islamic world. The most famous of these constructions was the Jingureber Mosque, designed by an architect from Andalusia. For centuries, it stood as a symbol of Mali's golden age. Under Musa, Timbuktu became a place where ideas flowed as freely as gold. Scholars studied astronomy, law, medicine, and theology. The city's reputation for learning rivaled that of Cairo or Baghdad. Timbuktu was no longer a hidden town in the West African desert. It became a beacon for scholars, poets, and thinkers from across the Islamic world. Men traveled thousands of miles to study in its schools and sit in its libraries. Books written by hand and bound in leather became as valuable as gold in Timbuktu's markets. Some records suggest that manuscripts were traded for horses, or even entire caravans of goods. Such was their worth. At the heart of this intellectual bloom was the University of Sankore. Under Musa's patronage, Sankore developed into one of the greatest centers of learning in the medieval world. Unlike many European universities of the time, Sankore offered not only religious education but also advanced studies in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, and literature. Scholars from Arabia, Egypt, and even distant Persia taught alongside local West African intellectuals. The university is believed to have held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, an archive so vast that it dwarfed the collections of most European libraries of the Middle Ages. As Musa grew older, he turned even more of his energy towards strengthening Mali's foundations. He poured resources into Timbuktu, Gao, and Niani, ensuring they remained centers of trade, governance, and learning. Pilgrims traveling to Mecca and merchants crossing the Sahara all spoke of the prosperity of Mali. Musa himself became a legend in his own lifetime. For his people, he was more than just a king. He was a guardian of faith, wealth, and wisdom. When Mansa Musa died, around 1337, according to most accounts, he left behind an empire at its height. Mali controlled vast territories, commanded immense wealth, and had a reputation known across the world. His heirs faced the difficult task of holding together the sprawling empire, and over time Mali's power would decline. But Musa's legacy was already secure. He had transformed Mali from a powerful kingdom into one of the greatest empires of its age. Even today, nearly 7 centuries later, Mansa Musa is remembered as the richest man in history. Yet his true greatness was not just in the gold he carried, but in the vision he had for his people. He understood that wealth was a tool, something to be used to build schools, mosques, trade routes, and knowledge. His reign was not just about riches, but about elevating his society, leaving behind a cultural and intellectual heritage that still inspires the world. In many ways, the story of Mansa Musa is the story of Africa's hidden past, an era of kingdoms, scholars, and wealth that often goes untold. He shattered stereotypes of his time, showing that Africa was not a dark or forgotten land, but a place of immense power and brilliance. And though the sands of the Sahara have swallowed many traces of his empire, his name endures,